Okay.
with the presentation. Okay,
Okay,
shall we
yeah,
start?
I think we can start.
Okay, I will put only slides. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on which continent you are during our meeting. I'm Matej Koshir, chair of VNGOC, and we are starting with our informal meeting, where we have several important topics which cannot wait until our AGM in March 2025. So before we start, there are some rules. So the meeting is being recorded and will be also published on our website. So also for those who are not present today, they will still be able to see and hear the informal meeting recording. Also, you can. We are going to use chat and Q&A throughout the whole meeting, so you can submit your questions anytime, or either by raising hand or writing. So if you raise your hand, we can also give you a word so you can speak, not just write in the chat or Q&A. And also, please make sure you are muted throughout the whole meeting to avoid any background noises. Okay, so this informal meeting was actually the idea and the proposal for this VNGOC meeting is particularly because one special reason, and this is a board election and also the continuation of the slate. As some of you may know, a few years ago we decided to try with the slate, which is proposed by nomination committee. And the reason for the slate is to balance as much as possible the structure of VNGOC board. We will present some of the results of the survey and suggest some ideas or proposal for the next AGM. Before we start, thank you very much for coming. We have some more than 30 people interested for the topics. And the first, because my position will be also part of the election process, I'm not able to continue with the first item, which is board election and the slate. So Trixie, I'm giving you the floor to present the suggestion and the process for the AGM elections and this about the slate and the survey. So the floor is yours, and just let me know when I need to change the slide, and I will do it for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matej, and welcome to everyone, and thank you for joining us. As Matej has already explained, we wanted to convene this meeting before our next annual general meeting and to have some conversations about the upcoming elections and the preparation and the process of the elections, including the nominations committee and the slate of candidates. So as Matej has already mentioned, his position as chair will be one of the positions open. The other positions coming up for election during our annual general meeting next year are also that of the deputy treasurer and the deputy secretary. As most of you know, we have elections every year during the annual general meeting, and it's always 3 positions up for elections at the same time to ensure continuity on the board. Our annual general meeting always takes place during the meeting of the Commission on Narcotic Drugs in the spring. This year, we are suggesting a provisional date, and Sarah or Mata, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if we've already confirmed this, but we are looking at holding our annual general meeting on the 12th of March, which I believe will be the Wednesday during CND from 3:30 Vienna time in person at the Vienna International Center. And also we always organize this in a hybrid format so that those who are not joining the CND in person in Vienna can also attend and also vote during the meeting. And we can move to the next slide. The way that we organize the board elections every year is that the Vienna NGO committee tasks a nominations committee with running the entire process of the elections. That includes, managing also the collection of the votes during the election. But an important function of the nominations committee that was introduced in 2021 is to come up with a slate of recommended nominations of candidates for the board. This is being done according to a terms of reference that was approved by the membership in 2021. This is also available on the VNGOC website. And according to this, the nominations committee is tasked with assessing the composition of the board. So even before the opening of the call for nominations for board elections, the nominations committee gathers to look at the current board and whether there's any changes, particular profile of candidates that they would be recommending to ensure balance on the board in terms of geography, thematic expertise, gender, age, and these criteria that the VNGOC board also uses for our speaker selection process. So the nominations committee assesses the composition of the board, and then once the applications and there's we usually include these recommendations in our call for nominations. So I think last year we also particularly said that there's a gap in terms of representation from Africa on the board, and that was included in the call for nominations from the side of the nominations committee. And then after the applications for board elections are received, the nominations committee also assesses these applications, again, looking at the composition of the board, the capacity of candidates, and the quality of the applications. And based on that, the nominations committee develops a slate, which means that they recommend one person per position to be elected. And that slate that the nominations committee recommends is, in their view, would be the best suited to ensure continued balance on the board. However, this slate remains a recommendation. So this is something that the nominations committee and the VNGOC board as a whole communicate towards the membership, that we believe that this would ensure balance going forward, but all VNGOC members are eligible to run for these elections and to also vote for the candidates of their choice, regardless of the slate. We can move to the next slide, please.
Is it moved?
Not for me.
Just a moment. I changed something, so
That's okay. In the meantime, to preface this, earlier this year, a couple of months ago, the VNGOC board has circulated a survey to our membership because at our annual general meeting this year, following the most recent elections, there were concerns raised by members on the effectiveness of the slate. So we wanted to circulate that survey to get further inputs and to understand the membership's views and preferences for the continuation of the slate. So we were collecting responses, I think, until the beginning of October, and we have received 50 responses from member organizations. This is out of our more than 400 member organizations. You can see some of the results on this slide. The majority of the respondents of the survey who had voted in the previous elections did indicate that they voted with the slate that was recommended by the nominations committee. But we received several responses where people explained that they voted differently, or people preferred not to disclose this information. In the survey, and we can move to the next slide, we also asked various questions about how the membership views the slate and how helpful it has been in achieving its intended purposes. We received generally very mixed responses from the survey, as you can see. So, for example, on the question on whether the slate has contributed positively to the concept of balance, which was one of the main intentions, we had more people disagree with this notion than those who agreed. On whether the slate has been a helpful recommendations, it was again divided, but with more people thought that it was a helpful recommendation than those who didn't think that way. And in terms of the slate achieving its goal of increasing the diversity on the VNGOC board at any given time, I think that's one of the responses where the answers, that's one of the questions where the responses were the most divided. As you can see, we had 18 respondents disagree and 16 agree with this. So moving on also on the question of the continuation of the slate, that was also one of the questions, whether members would prefer to continue the slate as is or not. You can see the responses are very, very divided. We had 20 respondents say that the slate should not be continued, 16 respondents saying that it should be, and several people saying that the slate is a good concept and it should be continued, but changes need to be made. So following up to that, we also asked the membership and those who responded saying that the slate needs to be changed in some sort of way about how that could be changed. So we are highlighting a few of the suggestions that were raised. It was quite interesting because in my reading of the responses, quite a few of the concerns and suggestions that were raised by the members are actually tasks that the nominations committee and the slate would already be implementing by the current terms of reference, but it also signaled to us a clear need to make this a more inclusive and transparent process, particularly provide more information about how the candidates are selected for the slate, so how the nominations committee makes these decisions. There's also a need for us to gather feedback like we did now, but more regularly to adapt the process to changing needs of the membership. Respondents have also recommended that the board circulates more information about the candidates and earlier, so the members can better assess who they would like to see serve on the board of the VNGO committee. And very clear recommendations from the membership on how there should be better communication about what the purpose of the slate is, especially for new members and how it functions. I think this was particularly raised in the sense of how the slate is a recommendation and not something that members have to follow. So that also leads into this need for regularly reviewing the terms of reference and whether the slate and this process is something that the members still find useful and something that we want to continue. And I saw that Sarah has also posted it in the chat, that we have circulated a more comprehensive analysis of the results that we received, and you can access it as well. But I think at this point we wanted to stop and open up the floor for those who are joining us today on this meeting to give some reactions and further input. Based on the input that we received from the survey respondents, the VNGOC board also had a discussion about ways forward. As I said before, we felt that the responses that we received were quite divided. We also only received 50 responses out of 400 member organizations. And with the results being quite divided, the board doesn't feel empowered at the moment to make any substantive changes to the slate. So at the moment, the board would be recommending that we are keeping the process as is for the next elections coming up in March. And then per the recommendations that you can see on the slide, we would come back and reassess this again after the elections in March 2025. So yeah, I will stop for a moment here, and we are very interested from hearing from all of you about whether you have any further recommendations and reactions to this.
Thank you, Trixie,
Yes.
for a very extensive presentation of the results and our not just our recommendation, but recommendations from the members. We have two hands up. So the first is, if I'm not wrong, Steve. Steve, please, the floor is yours.
Hi there. Thank you for that, Matej. Thank you, Trixie. Yeah, I feel I found the whole slate thing quite frustrating. I was a member of the nominations committee. I was involved in a lot of the discussions around the slate, and it felt that the idea of it was to sort of try and reduce some of the polarization within the VNGOC, to sort of depoliticize some of the discussions, and to try and make sure that, you know, different viewpoints and different you know, regional representation and other forms of equality and representation were included there. And a lot of work went into that by all members of the nominations committee, who represented all the different groups, whether that was sort of political groupings or regional groupings. And I just don't know what went wrong, because I don't know whether it was that it wasn't communicated well enough. I mean, certainly, and you know, I don't think there's any point in pretending that there isn't a certain degree of political polarization with the VNGOC. I think that's fairly obvious, but I hope that the VNGOC can serve to reduce that as a problem. It should be a neutral space, where one of the few places where different perspectives can come together and share ideas and find common ground. And it should be about reducing differences, not amplifying them. And, you know, I think in terms of the sort of, I don't know what you want to call it, the IDPC grouping, or the sort of reform-oriented grouping, or whatever you want to call it, we went into that process in good faith. We supported it. We think we came up with a balanced slate. And it was after all that work, it was just very dispiriting for people to then ignore it. And it felt like there were bad faith actors, and I don't take any joy in saying this, but it felt there were bad faith actors who were deliberately trying to undermine that process. And you know, I thought, well, do people just not understand the process, or is it being deliberately manipulated? And I just kind of think, what is the point of doing this if you then get it, to try and reduce problems and division and polarization, if then people come along and it becomes all very childish and conspiratorial, and people just try and undermine it, and so what was agreed by the slate then wasn't voted through. People literally ignored it, having agreed to the whole process. And it's kind of like, well, what was the point of all that work we did to set it up if other people then just come along and ignore that and trash it? And I just feel that if we carry on going down this road of kind of, power games and, the VNGOC is not a political entity anyway, or at least it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to represent the broad diversity of interests in the UN forums. That's its job. It doesn't come up with political positions on anything. It's not a political entity, and we shouldn't be treating it as some kind of proxy battle zone for other issues around drug policy. Or it's just an organizational functional committee for organizing speakers and representing the interests of civil society in the UN. And I just feel something's got lost where it's all got rather childish and conspiratorial. And we just need to take a step back and understand what the VNGOC is and go along with the slate. Because if it carries on down this road of increased sort of polarization and power games and whatever other childishness as rather defined it in recent years, especially around election time, it's just going to cease functioning. And it's just going to break. It's going to collapse. People will just cease participating in it. And that doesn't serve anybody's interest at all. So I would just appeal to all of you, whether you're on the board, on the nomination committee, or not, just to take a step back and say, what are we actually doing here? If it all becomes about political gains, we're just missing something. We're losing our grip on what the VNGOC is, which is a functional committee to represent civil society in these UN forums, and just getting involved in things that it shouldn't be, and it's also just a massive waste of everybody's time. We spent hours on that nominations committee and then just got completely hosed on by all kinds of sort of behind the scenes shenanigans about votings and blocks, and it's just really depressing. It seems like the opposite of what the UN is supposed to be about. We should be better than that. We should be leading the member states, not embarrassing ourselves in front of them with our stupid little games. So I hope we can just take a breath, take a step back, reflect on what this is all about, and that the slate was supposed to ensure balance and reduce polarization, not do the opposite. It shouldn't have been a source of conflict, but it's become one, and the whole thing just seems vaguely ridiculous to me. So I would just appeal to everyone to just be mature, adult, respect the principles of the UN, try and reduce conflict and polarization and not increase it. Thanks. I've probably ranted enough.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve, very much for your honest opinion. Magdalena, please.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Thank you to you, Martin and Beatrix, for presenting and explaining us about the survey and the process, and also to you, Steve. I myself don't have that much of an experience with Vienna NGO Committee. The foundation that I represent have been a member for 2 years, so we're relatively new in this process, but I wanted to share my appreciation and also my concern that actually echoes what Steve has just talked about. So I very much appreciate the slate and the idea, the principles behind it, as I understand it, about the balance and the harmony that we are trying to assure, taking into consideration how numerous, we have just heard, members we are in the Vienna NGO Committee, and from how many different perspectives in geographical areas, etc. we come. And I very much also appreciate the work done by the nomination committee to assure that the slide actually is representing this these different perspectives, genders, geographical perspectives, but also how we perceive drug policy and the way forward. And having said all of that, I wanted to express my concern and also say that as a member, I feel a little bit lost because what happened during the previous elections, this is how it looked like to me, that the slate was actually obviously ignored by some of the members. And this is like a big question mark to me, how to behave in the future, because I'm losing trust in the slate as an idea, and that really worries me. This is a big question mark, and as I'm saying, I feel a little bit lost and not really understanding what is happening. So thank you once again, Steve, for describing all of that from a bit more maybe perspective of someone who has been with this process for a bit longer. But I also thought that the perspective of newer members might be useful here. Thank you.
Thank you, Magdalena. As you know, my role as a chair will be in the election next March. I'm not really able to comment too much about the whole thing, but I have just hopefully on behalf of the board, I must say that we have been trying a lot within the board to balance at least the process of speaker selection. So if you look at our decisions as a board, you will see that we selected a balanced list of speakers from different perspectives. So this was not polarized at all. No matter what happened during the elections and with the slate, we will still we will continue. We will try to continue with this balanced approach as a board and select a balanced list of speakers for any kind of different opportunities for civil society organizations. I see another hand, Marie. Yes.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, my phone is being silly. Okay, I'm not sure you can see me, but can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for the explanations and the presentation about the slate. That was really interesting to see. I mean, I've had a chat already with Mate and with Augusto about the idea of the slate and the VNGOC, but I just wanted to put it out there. I fully agree with Steve. I think we've reached a point where it's incredibly problematic to see a polarization like this in the VNGOC. As Steve had said, the VNGOC is meant to be a vehicle for civil society participation, and we have enough battles to fight in that regard. We don't need more polarization or fights within civil society to make sure that this happens at the CND and elsewhere. So I think we should really find a way for all of us to work together to ensure that civil society space remains and can be expanded further. And right now, these petty politics within the board are really undermining that role. So I feel it's, you know, one of the reasons why we put together the idea of the slate at the beginning. It actually didn't come from IDPC. It came from, I think, URAD and others. And the idea was to ensure that the board would remain balanced, something that we completely understood and agreed with. And it's unfortunate that we're reaching a point now where we have to discuss why we need this balance. I mean, I think that's absolutely clear why we need the balance. Mate, you're saying for now the selection has been balanced, but will it remain balanced if none of the reform-oriented organizations and harm reduction organizations are within the board? I don't know about that, and I think I don't want to try to see. I think we should avoid that decision, you know, or that moment where we're, you know, seeing a selection that is no longer balanced, and then what happens? It discredits the entirety of the VNGOC, and I'm not sure we want to go there, because then, you know, there is a point where reform-oriented organizations will just no longer want to engage with the VNGOC because it has lost all credibility. So I think we need to think about that very carefully. We're at a critical point right now where the VNGOC might lose that credibility. So I think it's now we should act now and not later. Another thing I did want to highlight, because that was not, I don't think that came out in the presentation that Trixie delivered, but I'm concerned, and I think we have raised these concerns before, with the fact that there are some organizations that have many different national chapters, which is fine, but clearly there has been a major drive in the membership of the VNGOC by these national chapters. I have counted now about 38, I think, within the membership that is listed in the VNGOC website. They seem to be paying en masse for their membership, and they have voted en masse as well, clearly against the slate. Again, these political maneuvers are unfortunate, and I want to see if there is any way that this could be addressed with the board. So thank you so much for your attention, and I really look forward to hearing more about how we can sort out these mini issues.
Thank you, Marie. I still believe no matter what happens, the selection process for speakers will be balanced. As long I'm the chair, I will try to assure that the list of speakers will be balanced in any case, no matter what happens with the slate or elections. So we have two more hands. Cressida, please, the floor is yours.
Hi. Thank you so much for your presentation of the outcomes of the results. It was really appreciated that you actually did the survey throughout the year and presented the results as such. And also thank you for the input from the previous not speakers, but members. I would say that over the years, I think we have seen more of a positive development towards creating the balance. And yes, there were some moments where maybe not the slate was fully listened to, but in a way, the slate is new. So many people were maybe not acquainted with the slate. And I think we should maybe try one more time. We have talked about it now a lot in what the slate does, how it works, etc. The nomination committee is also getting more acquainted with it, as it is having different understandings around the world. So I believe that if we do try it one more time, we can see how it is perceived in the group, and then after the next elections we can actually better understand how it works among everyone else. And I do think that when we talk about balance, the board at the moment actually represents a very good balance. It's very, very equally 50-50 in such ways, and that is, as said, a very positive development looking back at maybe 5 or 10 years ago. So in a way, I think we should all just be happy that we have created such a balanced board, and now we just have to continue working towards getting more acquainted with the slate, and then work as such, and then make our decisions in the next meeting. Thank you.
Cressida, thank you very much. The only concern I have that we are probably not regionally well balanced. So this is something which we need to address in the future. So there are several missing regions in the board, and we need to sort it out in the future for sure. So all continents are pretty much equally, all regions are pretty much equally represented in our board. Esbjörn, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Steve and Marie, for your input, because it was very interesting to listen to at least Steve from the beginning, because you started with the slate now, but you could have gone back 10-15 years also in VNGOC's elections, and you could see how it went at that time. And we had some problems then. And we are coming from different cultures when coming from governing civil society and so on. And I know that we discussed it a lot of times, what we are doing in, let's say, the Nordic concept, that we have a slate and then it will be presented for the annual meeting or the Congress or whatever it's called. And then, of course, during the Congress or the annual meeting, proposals can come up and arguments will come and so on, and there will be changes in the election. So I really appreciate also Cressida coming in with give it another try, and let's see that if it can be balanced in a way when it comes to regional ages and so on. When we are talking of balanced, we could continue for the whole day when it comes to between, well, I think Steve said IDPC side or the rest and so on. And what is balanced there? That's another question, so to say. So please, I fully agree and support Cressida in this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Asbjørn. That was actually also the idea of the board. So we are actually suggesting that we go for the slate again, to try again with a better communication. That was one of the biggest concern, and better explanation what is all about with the slate, what is the purpose of the slate, and to work a little bit better on this communication and advocacy part of the process. So that we definitely did we did not good job in the past with the communication and preparation for the AGM regarding the election, and definitely this is one of the priorities of the board, and also hopefully other members as well, that we try to do as much as possible to promote the slate and the purpose of the slate, and finally get to the point where we want to be as a VNGOC board. Thank you. There was another hand, but now it's not there. Magdalena, you raised
Yes,
hand.
I'm trying to
You are
raise
still,
my
you're
hand.
still, okay, good.
Yes, I assume you can hear me, right?
Yeah, I hear you. We hear you.
Thank you. I'm not putting my camera on again because my internet connection is breaking. And I'm really sorry for taking the floor and again another time. But to be honest, I'm getting even more concerned hearing other voices because. As I said, I really appreciate the work of the nomination committee, and I trust and can see the results that the idea of a slate. I mean, whoever is proposed for the board, that here I can see this willingness to sustain the balance and really integrate the differences that we all represent. But what is more concerning to me is like how do members react to the slate, and what can be done to mitigate the risk of another time when the slate is ignored. And what is really concerning to me as a member, a single member, is that what we have just heard. So I would really appreciate if you could comment on that, because if I, as a member, I mean, meaning that the foundation that I represent pays the fee and we have one vote, and now I'm hearing that there are some other members bring a lot of their branches that then clearly that is somewhat a threat and a concern when you calculate the votes. And I mean, so I'm just really like wondering to what extent that should be mitigated, and are we all like equally active as members, or is it really meant to influence the voting? I mean, right now I'm really concerned. So if you could comment on that, I would be very grateful.
Thank you very much. I don't know by procedure if I'm allowed to to discuss this as maybe Trixie. Do you have anything to say about it? But definitely we need to address several of these concerns and issues. But regarding the block votes, I don't think there was very obvious block votes against the slate, or we should, because we don't know who voted. You know, it's anonymous voting, so we don't know who actually voted for the slate or against the slate. So this is, I think, impossible to figure out. But all members who pay the fee are able to vote are in good standing, and based on the rules and the statutes, they're able to vote for at the elections. So that's the only rule we actually have, and if enough members initiate this idea to address this issue, we can discuss about this at the AGM and try to figure out how to deal with it within the statutes and the rules we have. But definitely at the moment, all members in good standing, which pay the fee, they are able to vote. So that's maybe the only thing I can say in this regards. So we have several hands. Augusto, yes.
Thank you, Mate. No, I just would like to, because I'm a member of the board, and so I'm not, and I'm one of the persons that will be eligible for the next elections. So I just would like to reaffirm that when was during the call for the speakers, we did our work in trying to balance as much as possible, and when and to avoid any kind of favoritism to anyone, and that I can assure that at least I have my conscience that when in the call of the speakers, we did not was not favoritism to anyone, and we try to balance as much as possible according with the good abstracts that we receive, and also about the of course there are things on the board we need to speak, we need to solve, and also together with the rest of all the memberships that we need to like those associations with a lot of branch, are they entitled to vote or not to vote? Of course, all these issues need to be eventually to be spoken on the next general meetings. But we cannot forget that the VNGOC is having issues of politicization for a long time, if we can call it that way. I do remember the time of Björn Holmberg that we were basically forced to allow that members that will not pay to get the vote, and that for me was at that time was completely how this can be. People that they don't pay their memberships, they can vote, and and that was a kind of politicization on that time as well. So there's many things happening that we've been trying to fight for all these years, and I hope, like Cressida, that the slate can continue, and all the civil society can respect the domination of the slate, of course. And this is a human being. Some people, and as Mate say, we don't know who, but there are people that are civil society. They have their own thoughts, they have their own ideas, and they might not respect the slate. And how can we find out that, right? So in the end, it's about the human being that has the civil society to respect or not respect the slate, and there are things that they are out of our control, and that doesn't mean they are politicization or whatever. It's myself, I can openly say that I never agree with the slate, because I'm from Portugal. We don't use these kind of methods of democracy here in Portugal, but I respect that. So it's just basically that we continue ensure that the call for the speakers we respect, and we balance as much as possible, and basically that's it. Massimo, thank you.
Thank you, Augusto. And maybe just to add a little bit to previous discussion before we continue, I think the current situation within the board don't represent a threat for polarization at all. So we still have everybody, all perspectives present in the board. And there's no, I would say, not so big threat that one of these sides could leave VNGOC. I think we are not in that kind of position of polarization, so should not be, you know, it's not an arena for that kind of threats. So Steve, please.
Well, Matej, I don't think you can really speak for how other people are feeling about this, and I was expressing my personal concern and anger, really. Just my anger was really because I had personally done a lot of work to try and resolve these issues, and then it just it was just undermined, and it's just really dispiriting. And it's like, why am I bothering with, why are we bothering with the VNGOC if we do all this work and then and agree it between all the different groups, and we all the different groups represented on the board, they're on the nominations committee, that everyone agrees it, we vote for the slate to go through and blah blah blah, and then everyone just ignores it. It's just like, well, what was the point of that? That's and it's the same thing with these organizations having 38 national chapters voting and all paid for and voting. It's just like maybe we're misreading it, but it gives every impression of being a stitch up. It's just like buying in votes. That's what it feels like. Now, maybe it's all good faith and we're misreading it, but it doesn't feel like that. And I remember exactly the same thing happening a few years ago. I think it was San Patriano. There was some organization had 1 billion different things and they all registered, and then they started voting. And it was like, no, we went through again. We wasted an enormous amount of time and energy that the VNGOC should be putting into doing more useful things, arguing over whether this organization, I can't even remember, based in Italy or somewhere, treatment organization, could have 50 different regional entities all registered as voters. And it was just, the whole thing was really stupid, and it took up loads of time, and it was just, eventually everyone agreed that they couldn't do that, and it was resolved. But then it's happening again. It's just literally exactly the same thing is happening again, and it's kind of like Groundhog Day. It's like, why are we going through this? Everyone is absolutely behind the idea that the board should be balanced, that the speakers that the board chooses should be balanced, that the nominations committee should be balanced, and it should come up with a balanced slate. And yet when we get to the election, that all just disappears. And it's like, in that situation, certainly I can speak for Transform, we're not going to carry on participating with the VNGOC, and we would have to, I don't know, complain to whoever, I don't know who you can complain to about these things, but we'd have to go above the VNGOC to whoever it is, the UNODC or ECOSOC, and just say, look, this entity isn't functioning properly. Something's got to change. But I don't want to waste time doing that. I'd like to be getting on with the work and drug policy, which is why we're all here, to try and make the world a better place and improve drug policy. And yeah, of course we disagree on some of the details of that, but we all share the same goals in terms of supporting the UN Charter and, public health and human rights and development and all of these things. Let's focus on that instead of just this playground silliness. It's just boring, and it's a waste of everybody's time. And anyway, sorry, I'm ranting again. I'll stop. But thank you. I hope people can sort of see where I'm going with this. Let's just not keep playing these games. It's just such a waste of everybody's time.
Thank you, Steve. I understand, but I see no real reason for this kind of frustrations. That's my personal opinion, because of the current structure of the board and the whole processes in the board. So maybe, okay, Monica, yes.
Thank you, Matej. Well, I'm sure that some of you remember the beginning of the VNGO committee, at least when I joined the first meetings in Vienna. There was a handful of mostly Vienna-based organizations, such as Lions or Rotary Club working in the area of drugs. And there was no problem in having balanced representation. So now we have hundreds of members, and I think we should be proud of that. We should be proud of the fact that there are discussions among us. And I don't think at all that it is a waste of time discussing and trying to find better solution, to find more balanced way to approach the problem, more balanced way to find solution among each other. I mean, the work of the UN is based on that. It's based on the fact that people try to bring their position, their opinion, but then in the end of the day, they try to meet also other people's opinion and find a balanced common proposal. In my opinion, for the moment being, the board, but not only the board, also the membership is quite balanced. There are a lot of people. Regarding what Steve mentioned regarding San Patrignano, I'm not sure I heard he spoke about the fact that we attempt to bring in other affiliates, but it was not this way. I mean, there were organizations that used to work with us and still work with us, but they are independent organizations. But they were not allowed to enter because of their connection with San Patrignano, and I agree with that. It was okay. We didn't continue this attempt to introduce other organizations, like-minded, let's call them. San Patrignano is present with one organization and we have one vote. And I think that we should continue the slate because it is a good thing, because it brings people to discuss, to confront, and to find shared solution. I mean, when Steve, you say that it is a waste of time, I think that it is really frustrating. Not the work in itself of the VNGOC is frustrating, but the fact that you think it is, because actually I think we progressed a lot in our credibility. We found a lot of people of member states that trust us, that consult us, that want to know what civil society organization thinks about the drug policy implementation, drug policy evaluation. So I really can see that we are doing a worthless work. On the contrary, I think that we are working in a good way. We can do better, of course. We can do better with the slate. We can do better with the nomination committee. We can do better with communicating the background of the candidates. But there are many situations that bind us. I mean, also the candidates are not always balanced. So I've been part of the nomination committees many times, and it was not easy to find a balanced slate because of many situations. I mean, for example, it was difficult to include African continent because they have difficult connection online, so they couldn't connect with the bank in Europe, and they couldn't be elected as treasurer or vice treasurer. This was a problem. So this might affect the balancing of the slate. And also the slate is not binding. I mean, if the slate was mandatory to be respected, so that those who elect the board should be the nomination committee, but we are in a larger committee, and so each one has the right to vote. We also decided that this slate should be respected but not binding. So I think that we should only work to continue to be more respectful of each other, to work together. But I'm sure, and I trust, and I feel that we are going in the correct direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica. Just to add a little bit on Steve's and some other concerns, I also have been involved in with a lot of efforts and time to promote the slate. Actually, I was actually elected with the help of the slate. So I'm the first person here to respect the slate and work to promote the slate and advocate for the slate. And I will continue to do it. But I don't think it was or it will be a waste of time and energy and efforts. Because since the slate was introduced, I think we have more or less balanced board, which was not the case before the slate was introduced. So I think the situation is really not so pessimistic. If I listen to some of your concerns and contributions here in discussion, I really believe, strongly believe that the situation is not so dramatic and so pessimistic. That it is presented presented by some of you. So I think that since the slate was introduced, more or less we have balanced board, and we do as much as possible to balance all the speaker selection processes as much as possible, and we will definitely continue to do it, not because of the current board, but probably if we continue with the slate and if we continue with the balanced board, this the selection of speakers will continue to be balanced. I strongly believe in that. So that's not just because of the current situation in the board. Yes, Sylvia, please. You're muted. We don't hear you. So sorry, but you need to. Yes, now?
Ah, okay.
Yes,
Thank you
now
very
we
much.
hear you.
That's good.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, I've been a long-term, I'm a long-term member of Vienna NGO committee, and I'm in a really lucky position because usually my preferences concerning elections are met by the results. So I really trust the board and its in its capacities and everything. And this is lucky, but this is other people might think differently, and to have trust in the board, maybe there is a lack. And communication about procedures, I think I'm all for the slate because I think it's a good idea. It's a fruit of a democratic process, but democratic processes need to be communicated. So this could be a solution, or to try to make it more visible. What Steve said about this is boring and what should want to do more the real work. For me, there's these two parts of content-wise work on issues, etc., and the other is to work on the structure. But contents need the structure as they need a containment. And as far as I can see now, there's in general, there's a shift of, or a process that democratic structures are getting undermined in world politics and everywhere. And so I deeply value people who put time and effort in keeping up the structures and kind of bring them further. Because we need that. For me, it's democracy, what we have here now, or a laboratory of democracy, and the situation in general in terms of democracy it's dangerous, yes, and so we should keep up this good work. And not say, okay, it's useless because people ignore it and so on. Yes, there will always be people who ignore it or even try to undermine it, but this should not make us insecure about the purpose of our aims.
Yeah, thank you, Sylvia. Maybe just to slowly to conclude this discussion on the slate, Marie, I'm giving you the floor, but you will be the last person to comment, and then we will conclude this discussion and try one more time at next election with the slate. Marie,
thank you, Mate. Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, I just wanted to react on the fact that you were saying that the board is balanced currently. Currently, it's not really balanced. This 2 versus 4. It could have been balanced if the slate had been followed, in particular with a representative from Africa who was on the slate. That was one of the key mandates that we were given as the nominations committee, I remember, and we had presented a candidate from Africa who was not elected. I mean, a lot has been said, and I was a huge proponent of the slate. I was one of the people who actually was part of the drafting of the nominations committee new mandate. So I really agreed with that. However, it does require that everybody acts in good faith in the nominations committee, in the voting. And I agree that, of course, people are free to choose their own candidates. And of course, the nominations committee doesn't have all the powers. However, it is in the interest of everyone to have a completely balanced board. And right now, if things continue that way, who knows, is there going to be then one person who's more on the reform side and 5 on the less reform side? Is that still balanced? How is it going to be the year after, and the year after, and the year after? Mate has a commitment to ensuring balance in the selection. What happens if Mate is not re-elected? I think these are important questions in the long term that have to be addressed. And so I really count on all of us to actually find a solution, because right now things are not looking great.
Okay, I fully understand your perspective, but I still think the board is balanced because we have one board member from prevention, one from treatment, one from recovery, one from 2 from harm reduction or drug policy reform, and Augusto is actually from organization which covers all those areas, including harm reduction. And he was candidate of Harm Reduction Australia. Technically speaking, not from the perspective of IDPC, probably this is not correct, but from different perspectives, different areas present in the board, we are balanced from this point of view. But as I said, I fully understand all the concerns and problems, issues behind. So we will definitely try to address this with the new try of the slate at the next AGM, and then we'll see what happens, and we will definitely continue to discuss this issue because we are a democratic organization, and we are open to discuss all issues which are important for our members. And I think AGM will offer us enough space and time to discuss also after the election, after we see what will happen with the slate, to discuss the way forward with VNGOC without any negative threats to I don't know, to go out of the VNGOC. I think this is a very bad idea for anybody from our side. That wouldn't help civil society engagement at UN level at all. So I hope that we can spare time not to come with those kind of threats in our meetings because there's no need at the moment for these kind of threats to go out of the VNGOC from anybody's perspective. It's not a good idea, not at the moment and not at any time. So I hope we will not continue with this kind of discussion because it doesn't help in any kind of situations within the VNGOC. So hopefully we exhausted all concerns and contributions and ideas. So Trixie, are you going to also address the issue of the nominations committee? So I can give you the slides back. Yeah, this is now the current structure of the nominations committee. And we in the board, we agree that should be more balanced. So Trixie, please introduce our proposal.
Yeah, thank you, Matej. And just very quickly, thank you for everyone. Thank you to everyone for your contributions. I think you've given us a lot to consider, and there's, I think, a clear need to continue discussing around these issues and evaluating as we go forward. Just a quick comment, because the way that I've been thinking about and as a board, we have struggled with this on how to evaluate the effectiveness of the slate based on the terms of reference. There's a reading that the slate would be considered successful if all of the recommendations are actually followed, because that's how the nominations committee comes up with that. So that is a question. If the slate is partially successful, is that success? That's also up to the membership to decide. And then I think it's also an interesting question, because as Matej has also been circling around it, regardless of who sits on the board, all board members have to follow the rules of procedure. But clearly, in the past, there was a need to come up with the slates to ensure that this representation is continued. So as a member of the board as well, what I'm considering about this is, does this mean that's a distrust in the board? Is it a distrust in the rules of procedure? And how can we think about it as a committee, as a community, and kind of understand this and make sure that we can work productively together. So that said, very quickly, Matej, I can't see the slide. I don't know if it's showing up for others, but we are recruiting members, volunteers to support us with the nominations committee once again for the elections that are coming up in March. Again, as we said before, the nominations committee is tasked with supporting the board with the entire elections process. So preparations, but also the process of the elections themselves on the day. We are very thankful for the members who have already volunteered their time. But the board as a collective has identified that there would be a need for a bit more balance in the nominations committee itself, to try to ensure that the recommendations are something that everyone is comfortable with, particularly, I think, in terms of thematic balance. So please, if anyone else is interested and is willing to volunteer their time to support this process, then please let us know now in the chat. I'm seeing that Steve is volunteering again, or yeah, contact us via email. And thank you very much. And with that, I will hand back over to Matej.
Thank you very much. I hope you others see the slides. Sarah, are slides on the screen?
No, I can't see them either. I can just see your icon. I think we lost Matej. I'll try to share the slides from my side. Matej is saying that he has trouble rejoining Trixie. Would you mind continuing?
I can try to take us through that, and also Augusto, please feel free to chime in, and also you, Sarah. But yes, so again, thank you everyone for that discussion. For the remainder of the time, we wanted to share. So again, I saw a lot of volunteers already in the chat to join the nominations committee. Thank you, everyone. We're taking notes of that. And then, yes, moving on, we wanted to share some more information about the upcoming CND outside of the annual general meeting. I'm still seeing the nominations committee. Okay, can move it. So we wanted to share a bit of information about engaging at the CND itself. As usual, there will be opportunities for NGOs to submit written statements. The deadline for this is up to 2 weeks before the start of the CND. This year, that will be Friday, the 21st of February. This is for NGOs in special consultative status. These statements are issued unedited and as it's received. So that's one of the opportunities to engage. Again, for NGOs with consultative status, there's the opportunity during the CND to make oral statements. To do that, you need to inform the CND Secretariat at the email address that you see on the slides, and we will also be circulating these slides after the meeting, so you can refer to them. These oral statements, oral interventions are usually 2-3 minutes in length, and this list of NGOs is established on a first come, first served basis. So, and it's also usually time permitting and up to the chair of the CND. So there's unfortunately no guarantee that NGOs will be given time under the particular agenda item that they wish to speak under. On further opportunities for engagement, the UNODC Civil Society unit will also be, as usual, setting up an NGO table, which is providing room for publications to be presented on a table. This is usually right outside of the plenary, but there is limited space, so please be mindful of that. But the civil society unit tries to display all of the materials that NGOs wish, and this is also because it's not allowed to distribute materials to member states inside the rooms. There will once again be opportunities for organizing side events led by NGOs this year. There's a change this year that we wanted to highlight. Compared to previous years, the Secretariat has suggested new time slots for side events in 2025. So now the side events will be running parallel to the discussions of the plenary and the committee of the whole. These are also available, these time slots are available on the website, but this will mean that they will take place from 10 a.m. And the Secretariat, the reason for this change, as we've understood, is that side events have been growing more and more in number in recent years, which is great, but it has also meant that there's limited space, and these new time slots provide more spaces for side events to be organized. This year, the side events can be held in person, hybrid, or online. Similarly to previous years. An important detail is that, again, as usual, one NGO can only lead one event, but there's no limit to how many events you can co-sponsor. The application period will be between the 13th and the 24th of January. Side event slots are first come, first served. So we encourage you to submit your applications as soon as possible, and the application form is also linked. And I can see Nasli has her hand up, and also Sarah. So please do come in if I'm missing everything or if there's questions.
Thanks, Beatrix. This is Nasli from the Center on Drug Policy Evaluation. I just had a question on side events, so maybe I'll jump in before Sarah, and perhaps Sarah, in your adding to Beatrix's comments, there's also some comments on my question. Beatrix, you already very appropriately highlighted this fundamental change to the side event schedule in that the time slots are no longer what they've been for at least the last decade, as long as I've been going to CND. This is a change from a long established precedent. And what it means is that all of the side events are now taking place, as you said, during the plenary and or committee of the whole proceeding. So in tandem with those main events, the morning time slots are gone, the lunchtime time slots are gone. Essentially, every single time slot conflicts in whole or in part with other proceedings. So, Beatrix, you provided some rationale for why this was the case, to create more opportunities for time slots. That confuses me a little bit because we've eliminated certain time slot opportunities, like the lunch times seem to have been a time slot that has worked really well historically. Of course, the morning slots have been tricky with getting people to arrive at the CND earlier than the day begins. But I wonder if there is more that can be said, and I would ask the VNGOC as a body that represents civil society to perhaps express some concerns. My sense is that this scheduling change is actually going to, in many ways, undermine the impact of side events, because there will be so many conflicting priorities in those moments, particularly for member states, which I think so many of us in our side events want to be attracting member states as well as UN agency colleagues to be attending and hearing the views of civil society. So my sense is that this new schedule will lead to lowered attendance and just more conflicts for folks to attend, when it now looks like the lunchtime between 2 and 4, or rather 1 and 3, sorry, is completely open, and there's no proceeding. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about that, and if there's anything that the VNGOC can do. Perhaps this year the ship has sailed, I'm not sure, but for the future, it doesn't seem that this is necessarily reflecting the best interests of everyone to be able to attend a variety of proceedings. One other point on this, another fundamental difference that I noticed in the guidelines is that, as I understood it, UNODC would no longer be aggregating all of the side events as part of the program. People will remember that the last 5, 6, 7 pages of the official program was always this long list of side events by date and time slot. And now they will be doing that as part of the UN Journal, which is a daily online, well, also perhaps in person from the little window by the plenary. But ultimately, there is no aggregated place. You would have to be individually looking at daily proceedings to seek out what side events are happening. So this seems also to be a lowered promotion of side events, or a less of a simplified way of understanding what's going on in the side events program. So that is also another piece that I think the scheduling and the difference in promotion, these changes to me seem like they are going to undermine attendance and impact and awareness about the side events. And I would ask the VNGOC if this could be something that could be raised with UNODC, with the Secretariat of the governing bodies, as a departure from precedent that seemed to work well and will seemingly lower the impact of side events that we all put so much energy into. So I wonder if there's any comments or any thoughts on that, but thank you so much.
Thank you for the questions, Leslie. I don't know, Sarah, if you want to come in and share a bit more about.
Yeah, I was going to answer the questions in the chat first by Steve and Marie regarding the tables and the co-sponsoring of side events. Regarding the table, I fear we will again ask for more tables or an extra exhibition booths. I fear we won't get it because they allocate one table or one booth per exhibition organizer, and the NGO table is counted as an exhibition. I do think that maybe a way around that limited space could be for more NGOs to also request exhibition spaces, which basically just means that one little table plus the walls behind for you to display stuff, and maybe a group of NGOs could do that together to create more space and to occupy more space on the first floor. The rotunda will remain restricted and is for member states only. Regarding co-sponsoring as non-ECOSOC NGOs, as far as I stand, yes, they will continue the practice of also mentioning all non-ECOSOC sponsors in the program and the journal, but you cannot be the main organizer of a side event if you do not have ECOSOC status. Regarding the new time slots and the other changes for this year, as Natalie said, I think the ship for this year has sailed. We learned at the same time as member states about this change when they send out the information on the side events. I think I would suggest that we see how it goes this year, and once we've kind of gathered some feedback after this year's session, we could then formally raise that feedback with the Secretariat to see what worked and what didn't work. Maybe some of the slots will be great to have in addition. Maybe some of the slots won't work well. We've spoken to a few member states representatives in Vienna. They were overall quite positive with the time slots, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, if I can, as a board saying, I think is that what Sarah is saying is that by now we just need to see what's going to happen. Everything is a little bit not clear for us also. So when comes after the CND, I think we all can have a join together and share our opinions and to see how the things went, so we can then interact with the UN for the possibility to change or to share our opinions. And also regarding the information about the side events, I'm not sure if they will not send also a form like last year with all the side events that they were approved. So if they send, we might know all the side events in one PDF paper, and we might not need to to go check every day on the daily journal. Maybe Sarah can check if they are going to send to all the civil society a PDF with all the side events that they were approved. Thank you.
Thank you all. I saw that in the meantime, Matej has rejoined, but I don't know if he is able to continue.
I can speak, but I cannot share slides or change slides. So I'm like a usual participant from the internet.
I can help you move the slides along with that.
Okay, so the slides on is now. Okay, yes. We also have several other events planned by us. So like traditionally, we will have informal dialogues with UNODC Executive Director, the CND Chair, the new one, the INCB President, WHO, and informal dialogue, one informal dialogue for UNAIDS Office of High Commissioner on Human Rights and UNDP. So there will be 5 informal dialogues, and hopefully they will not overlap. So we will try to assure that all members in Vienna can join all 5 informal dialogues. As already said, we will have also General Assembly on Wednesday, very likely at 3 30 because we need some more time, because this year it was a problem with the late start of the AGM because of the elections, and so we will try to meet earlier, half an hour earlier, to process everything necessary before the start of the AGM. And also we will, as usually, we will sponsor and organize some co-sponsor and organize some side events together with the UNODC Civil Society unit on achieving SDG 3 and Asia Pacific regional side event together with a working group, Asia Pacific working group. So those two are already on the agenda, but I'm pretty sure we will be invited to co-sponsor several other side events, which we will hopefully join as speakers as well, if not only as co-sponsors. And there will be several other meetings during the CND as well. Also, a traditional NGO orientation briefing on Monday, and also we are planning to organize again a social gathering, which will hopefully be as close as possible to Vienna International Center, so as many organizations can participate also at the social gathering. So in the last, in the few previous years, I think we missed this opportunity to network, to be together, not informal way, but more in informal way. So this social gathering will give us an opportunity to reestablish this traditional practice of networking among us. And probably it will be organized on the day after the AGM. So next slide. Some other updates as well. As you can see on the slide, we now have 433 member organizations from 109 different countries across the world. You can find the current list of members on the website, and you can still see that some regions are not equally represented as some others. So I would like to use this opportunity to advocate for dissemination, for promotion of VNGOC as a global platform for civil society organizations. So if possible, promote VNGOC within your network, so we can get even more members from those regions which are not represented well on this list. So next slide. As you know, we have a new system of membership fee. So the minimum membership fee is now 30 euros. So for all organizations with a budget under 10,000 euros. And as you already know, that only members in good standing with paid fee for 2024 and 2025 will be able to vote at the next elections at AGM. So please take this into consideration and pay the fee on time, much before AGM, so we can shorten the process before the AGM and start on time on Wednesday. So next slide. And I also want to use this opportunity, the slide back, to promote again the engagement with the NGO marketplace. This is a platform, online platform, which allows NGOs to communicate to each other, to find, to search for potential project partners, or some partners for some other interventions or campaigns. So it's a good opportunity for you also to share invitations for your for different events you organize or webinars you organize, and also to share some news about what you do in your own countries or at the global or at the international level. So it is really good opportunity for all members to share information and exchange information on this NGO marketplace platform. And the last slide. So any other business? So I will not be able to see the chat or hands. So I would like to ask Trixie and Augusto to help me with this if somebody wants to add something. Are there any hands or questions in the chat?
I'm not seeing any hands for now.
No, but also the timing is good. So we spend all 1 hour and a half for this meeting. So I would like to thank you for very fruitful and important discussion we had. And hopefully we will drive this Vienna NGOC vehicle into the right direction so we can keep peace in the house and the balance as much as possible in different regards. And to continue to collaborate as civil society organizations among ourselves, and also bring as many civil society representatives at the different events, and to use as many speaking opportunities as possible for civil society organizations at the UN level. So thank you very much for coming and contributing to this event, and see you, as many of you possible, in Vienna in March. Thank you very much and goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone.